Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at the world of storytelling.
Ooh, fun.
Specifically, how to tell captivating stories in English. And to help us out with this, we're going to be looking at storytelling in English, a practical guide. Have you ever wanted to hold someone's attention when you're sharing an experience, or just wish you were a little bit more confident expressing yourself in English?
All the time.
Though this is the deep dive for you.
I think so.
Because it's packed with actionable tips.
I think one of the things that this guide does really well is it highlights that storytelling is a skill. It's not some innate talent.
Right.
And it presents some practical techniques that anyone can use to get better.
Yeah, and they do that in the guide by following these two characters, Ethan and Olivia.
Yeah.
And Ethan is kind of like the everyman. He's like all of us that feel like, oh, I'm not a natural storyteller.
Right.
And then Olivia is like this storytelling guru that kind of walks him through all these steps.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing that Olivia tackles?
The first thing she tackles is structure.
Oh, yeah.
She talks about how even a simple anecdote needs a solid framework to be engaging.
Okay.
So she introduces Ethan to the classic 3-act structure.
Ooh.
The setup, the conflict, and the resolution.
Okay. The 3-act structure. Now, I feel like I've heard that in relation to maybe writing a novel or a screenplay.
Sure.
How does that apply to telling a funny story at a party?
Well, let's say you're telling a story about that time you accidentally called your teacher mom.
Oh, yeah.
The setup would be describing the classroom, maybe how tired you were that day. The conflict is that hilarious moment of realizing what you said and the awkwardness that follows. And then the resolution could be how everyone laughed it off, or maybe how you tried to play it cool but failed miserably.
Okay. I'm starting to see how that framework can create a more compelling narrative.
Yeah.
Even for just a short anecdote.
Yeah.
It's like having a roadmap to keep the story on track.
Exactly.
And the listener engaged.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting is that the guide doesn't stop there.
Okay.
It goes deeper, exploring how to really captivate your audience.
Okay, so how do we take a story from meh to mesmerizing?
Well, Olivia emphasizes using descriptive language, incorporating emotional details, and bringing in dialogue. Instead of just saying, the food was bad, you could say, the chicken was so dry, it felt like I was chewing on a mouthful of sawdust.
Wow.
You see, by adding those sensory details, you're drawing the listener into the experience.
I can practically feel myself choking on that dry chicken now.
Exactly. And then adding the emotional layer takes it even further. Instead of saying, I was angry, you could say, my stomach was churning with frustration and I could feel my face turning red.
So it's about showing, not just telling.
Precisely.
You're letting the listener actually experience those emotions alongside you.
That's right. And bringing in dialogue can be incredibly powerful too. Instead of saying, the waiter apologized, try something like, he leaned in and said, I'm so sorry, sir. Let me bring you another dish. Perhaps the fish is more to your liking.
Now that's brilliant.
You see, you're transporting the listener right into the scene.
Yeah, they're not just hearing about it, they're experiencing it.
Exactly. And another key element that Olivia stresses is the importance of voice and delivery.
Oh, this is interesting.
Think about a time when someone told you a story that you still remember vividly. Chances are it wasn't just the story itself, but how they told it.
Right?
That made it so captivating.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that some people just have a way of drawing you in with their voice, their pacing, their expressions. It's like they're almost performing the story.
Exactly. Olivia encourages Ethan to experiment with different tones, use pauses for dramatic effect, and even incorporate physical expressions when appropriate. It's about embodying the story with your whole presence.
That's so cool. So it's like taking all those elements that we've talked about.
Yeah.
The structure, the descriptive language, the emotion, and then weaving it together with your voice.
Yes.
To create a truly immersive experience for the listener.
You got it. And this is where Olivia introduces some really interesting techniques to add even more flavor to your storytelling.
Okay.
Especially for those who are learning English.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of techniques are we talking about here?
She talks about using idioms and expressions to make the story more colorful and engaging.
Ooh, idioms.
Yeah.
Those are always fun to learn. Can you give us an example of how she suggests using them?
Well, instead of simply saying, I was happy, you could say something like, I was on cloud 9 when I got the news.
Ah, okay. So using an idiom like on cloud 9 adds a layer of imagery and cultural understanding.
Yes.
That can really enhance the storytelling experience.
Especially,
I would imagine, for English language learners.
It's
like you're getting a glimpse into the way native speakers express themselves.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that these idioms often carry cultural weight as well. providing a deeper understanding of how English speakers think and feel.
That's so true. It's not just about learning new vocabulary, it's about understanding the cultural context behind the language. So besides idioms, what other tricks does Olivia have up her sleeve?
She introduces what's called the rule of 3, which is a surprisingly effective technique for adding impact and humor to your stories.
The rule of 3, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
You know, you've probably heard this technique used before without realizing it. Think of famous speeches or even advertising slogans. That repetition makes them stick in your mind. It involves grouping things in 3s for greater impact and memorability.
Okay, so instead of just saying I was tired, you could say I was tired, drained, and ready to collapse.
Precisely. The repetition and rhythm of the 3 words create a stronger impression on the listener. It's almost like a mini crescendo that builds emphasis. And Olivia gives Ethan this great example for using it with humor. I ran out of the classroom faster than a rocket, a Sheeta, or a student late for school.
Okay, I can see how that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
The absurdity of the comparison, heightened by the rule of 3, creates a really funny mental image. I'm starting to realize that good storytelling isn't just about having a good story. It's about knowing how to shape it, how to use these techniques to make it truly captivating.
Absolutely. And what I find so encouraging about this guide is that it presents these techniques in such an accessible way.
Yeah.
It breaks down what can seem like an intimidating art form into manageable steps that anyone can practice.
It's like giving people the tools and the confidence to unlock their own storytelling potential.
So what comes next in Ethan and Olivia's journey to storytelling mastery?
Olivia really emphasizes practice. She encourages Ethan to start small, maybe just sharing a short anecdote with a friend or family member.
That's such good advice. I think sometimes people can get so caught up in the idea of telling like a perfect story that they forget that it's really important to just get started and have fun with it.
Yeah, definitely.
What I'm gathering from this deep dive is that good storytelling isn't just about having a good story. It's about knowing how to shape it,
You got it.
how to use these tools and make it truly captivating.
It's about empowering individuals to find their voice, to confidently share their experiences and perspectives with the world. And you know, stronger storytelling skills can really impact so many areas of life, connecting with colleagues, delivering a compelling presentation, or even just entertaining your friends at a dinner party.
Totally. I've definitely noticed that people who are good storytellers tend to be more engaging and persuasive in general. It's like they have this superpower
Yeah.
that can open doors and create opportunities. So if I'm someone that wants to start putting these tips into practice, where do I begin?
Olivia suggests focusing on incorporating 1 or 2 of the techniques we've talked about, like descriptive language or the rule of 3. And don't be afraid to experiment. Play around with different tones of voice, try adding some dialogue, see what feels natural and engaging.
You know, I used to think that the rule of 3 was just a comedy thing, but I recently tried it in a presentation at work, and I was really surprised by how much it helped emphasize my points.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these seemingly small techniques can make such a big difference.
The key is to build confidence and fluency over time. The more you practice, the more comfortable you become with using these techniques. And remember, storytelling is supposed to be enjoyable. Don't get too bogged down in the rules. Let your personality shine through.
I love that Olivia doesn't just focus on the technical aspects of storytelling.
Yeah.
She also highlights the emotional and social benefits.
Yeah.
Did you notice that she told Ethan that storytelling can help you with communication, confidence, and even making friends?
I did. Yeah. It's fascinating how she connects these seemingly disparate ideas. It's a reminder that storytelling is inherently human. It's how we share our experiences, build relationships, make sense of the world around us. You know, when you can tell a good story, you naturally draw people in. You create a connection.
Right.
And that can lead to all sorts of positive outcomes.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Well, if you've ever felt hesitant or unsure about your storytelling abilities, this deep dive has hopefully given you some valuable insights and a renewed sense of possibility. The guide that we've been exploring today really offers a roadmap for anyone who wants to improve their storytelling skills in English. And it reminds us that storytelling is a learnable skill, not some innate talent reserved for a select few. With a little practice and guidance, you can transform the way you communicate and connect with others through the power of story.
But this raises an important question. The guide focuses specifically on storytelling in English.
Okay.
But are these techniques universal? Do they apply to effective storytelling regardless of the language being used?
That's a great point. While the guide focuses on English, I'm inclined to think that a lot of these principles apply to good storytelling in any language. What do you think? I'm leaning towards yes. I mean, think about the three-act structure. We find that in stories across cultures and throughout history.
Right, the three-act structure, descriptive language, engaging the audience emotionally, those seem pretty universal, right? Those elements tap into our shared human experience, the way we process information and connect with narratives. You know, a well-told story, regardless of language, has the power to transport us, make us feel, and leave a lasting impression.
It's like we're wired for stories, no matter where we come from or what language we speak. And this guide has given us such a fantastic toolkit to tap into that power specifically in English.
And it demystifies the process. It shows that anyone can become a better storyteller with practice and by using these techniques.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about being a naturally gifted speaker. It's about understanding the building blocks of a captivating story and using them strategically.
Exactly. So what story have you been wanting to share? Maybe it's a funny anecdote, a heartwarming memory, or even a challenging experience that taught you something valuable. Whatever it is, I hope this deep dive has given you the tools and the confidence to tell it in a way that truly captivates your audience.
Storytelling is a gift, a way to connect with others on a deeper level. Embrace the techniques we've explored, practice them, make them your own, and most importantly, have fun with it. Who knows? Maybe your next story will be the one that leaves everyone wanting more.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the art of storytelling. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep sharing those amazing stories.